ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. Namaskar to all of you. Welcome to the study of Great Master Sri Ramakrishna. We were studying the chapter Teacher's Mode and Mathuranath, Guru Bhava and Mathuranatha Vishwas. Indeed, a great good fortune smiled on Mathur. The scriptures say that not only ordinary people, but even those who have become liberated in life, that is the Jivan Muktas, who have somehow struggled all through their life and now realized God, realized the Atman, then they are called liberated even while living. So Jivan Muktas. So when we talk of these people who are ordinary Jivakotis who have realized God through hard self-effort or the grace of Guru or the grace of God, so even if you take their matter to who have been liberated in life, they cannot but experience the result of actions of both kinds, good and bad, as long as their bodies last. As their bodies last, that is the prarabdha karma. Sanchita karma can be neutralized, agami karma can be neutralized, but prarabdha karma, because it has already started fructifying, so even after God realization, they have to undergo that, but they will not feel that because they have realized God, they have removed their ego completely, obliterated their ego, so they are not going to feel that pain or pleasure because they are beyond that now. But what is to happen to that? Where will that go? Where will that thing go now? Karma, good or bad? Because their body is there, they have to undergo these things, but now those karmas cannot touch the Lord who is within because he has realized God. He doesn't have the ego. So now Shardananda Maharaj is telling, our scriptures tell ordinary men experience the result of their good and bad actions themselves. Now, who experiences the results of good and bad actions done through the body of the liberated? Now, the liberated people, they have their good and bad as long as their body lasts. So, these ordinary men, the other people who are around the liberated soul, they will be sharing it. How? For the liberated one cannot be that experiencer, as his ego has been burnt up by knowledge and devotion and he is without any ego. There is no liability to enjoyments and suffering springing from action. Who then can possibly be the experiencer? The result of actions are inevitable. Even the liberated ones cannot but do some actions, good and bad, till their bodies fall like a dry leaf. The scriptures say that those unliberated people, men or women, who serve and love the liberated one, enjoys the result of good actions of the latter, and those who hate and trouble them through their words, calumny, character assassination, or criticizing them, those people, they suffer the result of bad actions. So these people will share. done through their bodies. So similarly, there is the reading in the Satyayini recension, his sons come by the patrimony, friends, the result of his good actions, and foes, those of his bad action. Again, similarly, the Kaushitaki, that is one of the Upanishad reads, he, the man of knowledge, when dead, shakes the result of his good and bad actions by that, by the strength of the knowledge. His dear Gnatis or relatives enjoy the result of his good action, and his haters, their enemies, or those people who trouble him, those share their bad actions. So, yesterday I gave the description telling that should be very, very careful. Please do not hurt any good people. If you hurt the mind of good people, you will be committing intensest of papa karma. If you serve the liberated souls or the good people, anybody may be, it may be the grihasthas, it may be the brahmacharins, the young children, or anybody, if we trouble the good people, then we are committing the intensest of sins. If we are serving them and making them happy by our actions and service, helping them, then that will be the good people, that will be the intensest of punya karma. So it will result quick, it will give quick result. So one of the stories told while explaining about this fact regarding the Patanjali Maharshi's Rajayoga is told about the Indra. One of the Indras, there can be many Indras. Any human being who performs the highest punya will get the post of Brahma, then Indra, it goes on. So anybody can replace them according to the number of punya karmas you do. So now one king who had done lot of yaga, yagna, havan, charities and good karmas, tapasya, he now has done the punya karma so much so that he overtook in punya karma to the present Indra. Indra is only a position, it is not the name. So this king called Nahusha, he overtook Indra by his punya karma, so he became the Indra. Okay, that's well and good. The other Indra was replaced. He could have ruled the kingdom of God and be happy, but that fellow didn't do that. He didn't keep quiet. He wanted the wife of the old Indra. Her name was Shachi Devi. So he told that you should marry me. So then that woman was a pativrata. She didn't want to give up her old husband. She told, no, I can't do that. But this fellow, Nahusha, was telling that I am the Indra now. Everybody should follow me. So he was asking her to marry him. Okay, she was in trouble. Now came in our great Devarshi, Narada Maharshi. So she went and pleaded, fell at his feet and asked, oh, Narada Maharshi, can you help me? This is the problem. Okay, I can help you. What should I do? Then Narada Maharshi told, commit that Indra who is troubling you or who has taken over your husband's place as Indra, that Nahusha Chakravarti, make him to commit some intensest of papa karma, then he will lose the punya and your husband will again gain the position of Indra. So easy. So how should I make him to commit the intensest of sin? What is that? So I will teach you what to do. Then she did accordingly. So now when the next time that Nahusha Chakravarti was the earlier Chakravarti, now has become the Indra, he came again to persuade her to marry him. She told, okay, I will marry on one condition. And what is that? You have to come to marry me, carried by the Saptarshis, the great seven rishis. have to carry you on the palanquin on their shoulders. If you do that, then I'm going to marry you. Okay, that's very easy. Whatever I command, they will do because I am the Indra. Now, Indra commanded them, you have to carry me. Saptarshis were very great. They are even greater than, to some extent, they have gone beyond Brahma to Chaturmukha Brahma. They are even above the Vaikunta, Satyaloka. They will be in a very high position in Nirakara, Parabrahmas, that pure Akhanda Satchidananda consciousness. It is explained in the beginning of the life of Swami Vivekananda, or in the whenever we read the experience of Sri Ramakrishna moving up to that loka, Saptarshi loka. Okay, they were bereft of that ego. That's why they have become Saptarshis. They don't want any joys of this world. They're always merged in Samadhi, the highest Parabrahma Swarupa. When Indra commanded them, they are ready. So they were carrying. One of the rishis who was carrying in the front, who was leading, carrying that palanquin on his shoulder, was a little short by height. So when his turn came, so the palanquin will go down in height. There would be some disturbances. So now Indra became very egoistic. The Nahusha, who was being carried by the Saptarshi, see, even the Saptarshis are carrying me. He was full of pride. Now, when they were carrying towards the Shachi Devi there, the old Indra's wife, naturally, you know that men, when they see, especially the boys, when they see girls there on the street or in the college, they become too over enthusiastic, and they start behaving very peculiarly. If they have a vehicle, they will honk, or if they have a scooter, they will make more sound, accelerate the car, all those things you know in the world. So this fellow also, when he saw Shichi Devi, became very egoistic and full of pride. Then he kicked the front rishi, who was a little short, who used to be going down. He was angry on him, so he wanted to show he was so great. He kicked that rishi in front with his leg and told, Sarpa Sarpa. In Sanskrit, Sarpa means go fast, go fast. So he became too much, what do you call, over enthusiastic, and kicked the rishi. Then the rishi, Saptarshi, they were bereft of ego, they were carrying him. This Indra should have carried them, such was the greatness. But forgetting all that, they were carrying him. Now, when he kicked him with the leg and told him Sarpa Sarpa, then that rishi who was in the front cursed him, telling that you have become so egoistic. So you become a Sarpa. You are telling Sarpa Sarpa, now you go and become a Sarpa. Sarpa means snake. Now, you should note that in the stages of evolution, from the single celled beings, we are coming up doing so much of punya karmas. Gradually, you can't do punya karma in the lower this thing. To reach the human kingdom, you should have crossed 84 lakhs of human life, 8.4 millions of, not human life, the any lives, births, 8.4 millions of births, from the microbes to the fish to the mollusk to the, you'll be a pig or a donkey, and so many animal life we have to cross and come to human life after 8.4 millions of life. Then as human beings, after committing so many papa karma, punya karma, getting human birth again, going to Indraloka, Chandraloka, Pitraloka, then Vanar, this Kinnara Loka, Kim Purusha Loka, then the Gandharva Loka, Swarga Loka, again you have to come back as human being, then again you will commit sins and go back to the animal kingdom, again come back. So like that you might have spent millions and millions of life. Now, to do so much of punya, to become the Indra, you might have spent so many births of punyas. So, such a person, Indra, now, when he did this act of kicking the Rishi, Saptarshi, that was the intensest of Papa Karma, paining the mind of that great Rishi, the realized soul. So, that was the intensest of Papa Karma which he committed. So by that, he had to go down so much in the level of. Now, just imagine the position of Indra is next only through Chaturmukha Brahma. Such a person in that place, now suddenly because of that intense Papa Karma, he had to go to the kingdom of reptiles. You know, reptiles are so low. That is a snake is the reptile. It belongs to that species, reptiles. So from the position, where is the position of Indra? And from there, not even human being, Pitraloka, and below the human being, there are so many animal kingdom. Below that, now he has become a snake. So he was that snake who was there in the forest when Bhima goes to the forest. He was bound by this snake. You know that in the story of Mahabharata, and Bhima couldn't come out of that. That was this Nahusha Chakravarti. So now, what did that person do? He pained the mind of a good person. And that was the intensest of karma. So, what was the result? He had to come down so much in the scale of evolution, even so low to the reptiles. That is the snake. So, that's why here Shardanandaji Maharaj is telling what happens to the karma of these people, those liberated soul, because that cannot touch the liberated soul because he has obliterated the ego. There is only God in him. So all that punya and papa will be shared by the people who are around him. Those people who serve him, who do good things to him, they will get all the punyas. Those people who trouble him, who are his enemies, who are spreading calumny against him, thinking bad about him or anything, they have to share the papa karma. So that's why when the we do any actions, harsh words, spreading lies, or telling so many things against good people, please be careful. You are committing the intensest of sins. So do not pain anybody willingly or knowingly. And also treat everybody with great love and kindness and help them because human beings are the highest manifestation of God. So you will get lot of punya by which you can progress in spiritual life. I had explained this with in great details yesterday. Now we shall move forward. As days passed, Mathu's vision of spiritual mood in the master became clearer and his devotion to him firmer. Meanwhile, there happened many events. The appearance of an extremely painful burning sensation in Sri Ramakrishna's body on account of the separation from God and the treatment thereof. So now Ramakrishna was undergoing intensest of dispassion and also what you can call is separation from God. So it gives you a lot of pain because just like you could see in Vrindavan, the gopis and Radhas, they felt this pain because they were separated from Lord Krishna. They couldn't withstand that. So they had to undergo lot of pain because they were separated from Krishna. So that is divine discontentment. It's called divine discontentment. If that discontentment is turned to the human beings, ordinary people, that will become attachment and take us down in the scale of spiritual life. But if it is turned towards God, if you feel the separation of God, that you have not realized God, then that will help you to progress in spiritual life. So Ramakrishna was now in the period of the sadhaka. So he was undergoing the separation from God. So he's feeling that pain that I'm separated. I have not yet realized God. Now he has become an ordinary human being. He has taken up all the weaknesses of the human beings, all the pains and everything, though he's a avatara, because he is to show the path. So now, with Vyakulata, longing for God and feeling that intense separation for God, he's feeling that pain. So that he wants to show us the path, how to love God, how to go towards God. So, how to feel the longing for God. So, he wants to show it what that is. So, now during that period, when he was feeling the extreme separation, The master's body was feeling the painful burning sensation in his body on account of separation from God, and the treatment thereof, the Bhairavi Brahmani, because no doctors could cure it. It is not a physical ailment. So many Ayurvedic doctors came, so many other homeopathy doctors, they gave medicine. Nothing could cure it. Now, Bhairavi Brahmani, the guru who came there, the lady who knew the scriptures of the Vaishnavas, of the Tantras, and everything, she was an expert. So, the Bhairavi Brahmanis advented Dakshineshwar, and the demonstration with the aid of evidence from Vaishnava scriptures in the presence of a circle of great scholars, Pandits, who were well versed in the scriptures, invited by Mathur, that the master Sri Ramakrishna was an incarnation of God. The arrival of Totapuri, the great Vedantin, and the master's initiation into sannyasa, the coming of the aged mother of Sri Ramakrishna to Dakshineshwar, and her stay there when she lost many of her children, and so on. Since the day on which the strange vision mentioned above took place, that is, Mathur Babu was once sitting in that Babu's mansion, and facing that was Sri Ramakrishna's room in Dakshineshwar, and there in the courtyard, Ramakrishna was walking, pacing back and forth, not noticing anybody, but in the mansion was sitting there. Mathurnath was sitting and watching Ramakrishna pacing. Ramakrishna never knew about it. He was walking by himself, thinking of God, immersed in that God consciousness. Suddenly, Mathurnath had the vision whereby when Ramakrishna was walking from towards in that direction, from the room to the direction of the room to the other direction, he looked like his Ishtadevata. Mathur's Ishtadevata was Mother Kali. So he looked like Mother Kali. It was not Ramakrishna anymore there. But going backwards towards the room, that is pacing backwards in that courtyard, he got the vision as if Shiva is walking. So Shiva, Shakti, Shakti, Shiva. As he was walking towards Mathur, rather not Mathur, towards the outer direction of the room, he is looking like Mother Kali, and going towards the room is looking like Shiva. So Mathur was very much disturbed and perturbed. What is this am I seeing? He rubbed his eyes. He didn't believe. He was skeptical because he was educated in the Western standard. He knew English and everything. So he was an educated person. He couldn't believe his eyes. He was skeptical. He rubbed his eyes again and again and saw the same thing. There was no Ramakrishna. It was Divine Mother Kali coming this way and going back again. It was Lord Shiva. So he came, ran there towards Ramakrishna, clasped his feet with his hand, and started crying, I know, Master, who you are. I know you are not an ordinary human being. So we read about that yesterday. So since the day on which the strange vision mentioned above took place, Mathur became closely connected with almost all the events that happened daily in the master's life. Mathur made arrangements for Sri Ramakrishna's treatment. What kind of treatment? Because you know that because of that intense separation from God, Ramakrishna was feeling that burning sensation in his body because he felt the intense separation. Can you imagine that longing for God, Vyakulata, feeling that I have not realized God? God is a separate entity yet in me. So that burning sensation aroused in his feature or in his person. So now you can imagine what is the intensity of his feeling for God. And you can also now compare your intensity of feeling towards God, where we are in the scale. So when Ramakrishna was undergoing that burning sensation due to the extreme dis that satisfaction or discontentment due to the separation from God. So Mathur made arrangements for Sri Ramakrishna's treatment by Ganga Prasad Sen, the famous physician of Calcutta, and by Dr. Mahendralal Sarkar. The master felt a strong, loving desire to adorn the Divine Mother with anklets, that is the feet they wear, especially Divine Mother Kali wears a special kind of anklet. So Ramakrishna felt a strong, loving desire to adorn his mother with anklets and other ornaments of same pattern that are used by the ladies of Uttar Pradesh, UP, Bihar, that area. And Mathur had them made at once. Again, at the time of practicing the attitude of a female friend of Divine Mother, as prescribed in the Vaishnava books, Sri Ramakrishna had a mind to put on the dress and ornaments such as those used by women, and Mathuranath had a suit of diamond set ornaments, a Varanasi sari, and a wrapper, and such other things bought immediately. So the Varanasi sari is also called Banarasi sari, the same thing. When he came to know that Sri Ramakrishna had a desire to go and see the festival of Panihati, Mathurnath immediately made arrangement for that visit. That was not all. He himself went in disguise with a bodyguard with him in order to protect the person of Sri Ramakrishna, lest he should be put to inconvenience on account of the big crowd. Just as, on the one hand, we have heard of Mathur's wonderful service, so on the other, we have also heard from Sri Ramakrishna that he set also some dissolute women, characterless women or prostitutes, he also set them on Sri Ramakrishna to see whether there arose in Sri Ramakrishna's mind any impure feelings. He wanted to test Sri Ramakrishna also. So he had set some impure minded ladies, that is the prostitutes, good looking, against Sri Ramakrishna to see whether he had completely controlled his senses, whether Sri Ramakrishna's mind there would arise any impure feelings, that he proposed to transfer also another time. He also tried to transfer in writing all the trust property of the temple in the name of Sri Ramakrishna, to which at which in a state of divine anger, when Mathur tried to transfer that property in the name of Sri Ramakrishna, all the temple property, so the Vairagya Shikamani, whose mind was filled with dispassion and detachment, that was Sri Ramakrishna, intense Vairagya. So he developed the divine anger at that time. So when he tried to transfer that property in the name of Sri Ramakrishna, Ramakrishna, at which in a state of divine anger, Ramakrishna was about to beat Mathur, saying, "Do you want to make me a worldly man?" And that Mathur was once saved by Sri Ramakrishna from the danger of being very severely punished by the court on a charge of homicide in connection with a riot on his estate. He was about to be convicted and maybe would be given even the punishment of hanging. So because of the grace of Sri Ramakrishna, he could come out of that too. Whereupon, in order to escape that danger, he confessed all his mistake to Sri Ramakrishna and confessed everything to him and took refuge at the feet of Sri Ramakrishna. So now you can see whatever mistake we might have done earlier, do not worry. Think of the future. Do not feel guilt conscience. Just surrender at the feet of the Lord. So only tell the Lord, I'm not going to commit such a thing in future. I've done the sins, and confess. Don't keep anything in your heart to the Lord. Don't go and do that to any human being, anybody and everybody, but to God only. So confess everything, whatever you have done, all the sins you have committed, and plead and surrender. Then you can see the Lord will forgive and take you out. You can see that in the case of Mathur. He confessed, he told all the truth, and he surrendered at the feet of the Lord. Now Ramakrishna protected him even from that great danger. He confessed to Sri Ramakrishna everything and took refuge in Sri Ramakrishna. We see from this fact that devotion to the master was gradually taking firm root in Mathur's mind. And how could it be otherwise? Just as Sri Ramakrishna's wonderful character, unintelligible to human beings and rare even amongst the gods, stood all the tests of Mathur Babu. It stood all his tests. So Mathur also tested Sri Ramakrishna many times and appeared brighter and brighter as days passed. So just like if you put the goldsmith to clean the gold, he puts it into fire. He heats it and it melts, and then the gold becomes brighter and brighter, and it loses the impurities. So likewise, the more he put Sri Ramakrishna into test, the more Sri Ramakrishna came out with more brightness. So Ramakrishna stood all the tests of Mathur and appeared brighter as days passed. So correspondingly, his never failing selfless love completely captivated Mathur's heart. Mathur saw that he could not be deflected from the path of renunciation. Sri Ramakrishna could not be deflected from the path of renunciation even by an inch, by an offer of a property worth lakhs of rupees at that time. Now it would be billions. So at that time, the property worth lakhs of rupees during that period, that one could not produce a change in Sri Ramakrishna's mind with the lure of beautiful woman or money, that he could not be led astray or made egotistic by any offer of worldly respect and reverence, for no greater respect can I offer to another than to worship him as God, and that he did not want anything in the world for himself. Mathur also knew that Sri Ramakrishna did not look down upon him in spite of knowing all the weaknesses of his character, but loved him as more than his own and saved him from dangers again and again, and was always thinking of his welfare in all respects. Mathur put this question to himself: what do these signify? And he felt that though human in body, Sri Ramakrishna was a person of the country where there is no night. That his renunciation was wonderful. His self-control, knowledge, devotion, and actions were all wonderful. And above all, his love and grace for a weak but vain mortal like himself too was very wonderful. Another thing that Mathur felt simultaneously in his heart of hearts was the sweetness of that unique character. The master remained a simple boy, though there was that unprecedented manifestation of divine power in him. He remained very simple. There was not the slightest egotism in him. How strange! Like a boy of 5, he did not conceal even a little of whatever thoughts arose in his mind. There was always the same mood within and without. Whatever was in the mind was wholly manifested in words and deeds in all sincerity. This is called as doing any work, kaya, vacha, manasa, at the level of the physical body, at the level of the thought, and at the level of the speech. That is called as kaya, vacha, manasa. So everything was one. We have 3 or 4 different faces, so many faces maybe. So we think something, we speak something, we do something, we behave with our close kith and kin in a different way, in the office or in the school or in the outer surroundings, we feel we do things differently. So we'll see so many different characters at different places. But Sri Ramakrishna was just one everywhere. No insincerity at all. The same, just like a small child. Whatever were the thoughts, that would be the words. Whatever the words, that would be his deeds. So, no hypocrisy, even to the smallest degree. That was Sri Ramakrishna, just like a simple boy, in spite of all his great powers, in spite of all that great manifestation of devotion and knowledge. So, I'm being disturbed by some sound. I think from the speaker of Rajendra Rajkumar is on. Can you please put off the mute the speaker, please? The sound there is disturbing me. Can Rajendra Rajkumar please mute the mic? Okay. Whatever was in the mind was wholly manifest in words and deeds in all sincerity. Yet he never expressed Om Namo Narayanaya. Can Rajendra Rajkumar please mute the mic? The water sound and all other sound is disturbing our class. Can you please put off the mic? Yet Sri Ramakrishna never expressed anything which might be harmful to anybody. Even if he had to suffer bodily pain, he would not express anything to the other person. It is possible to find such sweetness. Is it possible to find such sweetness in a man? Now, let us now see what is Sri Ramakrishna, the Avatar Purusha. Now he has realized God to the highest. There is nothing of want. He could get billions and millions of rupees or the ornaments or the what you call the property at any time by anybody whom he would approach. Anything could be provided even by Divine Mother. But at the same time, he was so simple and compassionate to the living beings. In the meditation stotra of Sri Ramakrishna, you can see Vitaritum avatirnam gnana bhakti prashanti pranaya galita chittam jiva dukkha asahishnum dhrita sahaja samadhim chinmayam komalangam vimala paramahamsam Ramakrishnam bhajamaha. Vitaritum, to spread, to distribute, to give. Avatiranam, he has come down to this world. Gnana bhakti, prashanti, the eternal peace, highest knowledge of God, then devotion to God, to distribute that, to give us all this, he has come down. So, Dhrita Sahaja Samadhim is always in that highest state of yoga. Vitaritum avatirnam gnana bhakti prashantihi pranayagalita chittam. His mind is soaked in the sympathy and kindness towards the living beings, love towards the human beings. So there, pranaya galita chittam, jiva dukkha asahishnum. He cannot even withstand the pain, a little pain of the living beings. So he is ready to sacrifice himself for anything to lift that human being, to take their sufferings and suffer himself. So that's why the word used is the jiva dukkha asahishnum. He cannot bear the pain. So if you call him, if you cry for him, he will immediately respond. He cannot bear the pain of any living being. Now you can see the intensity of his kripa or his compassion. Now you can see jealousy broke the heart of Haladar, the Kalighat priest of Mathur Babu. When he saw that latter's firm devotion to Sri Ramakrishna. So when Mathur Babu, he was like a king there, the prince, the important son-in-law of that Rani. So he was controlling everything. So naturally, many people wanted to get his favor. But even without any effort, Ramakrishna is getting his favor. Ramakrishna doesn't want, he's pushing him away, but rather giving him everything spiritual and good, protecting him. Himself, he doesn't want any money or any property or any favor from him. But Mathur is trying to go always with him, following him, trying to serve him. So when this was seen by that priest of Kalighat, his name was Haladara. Haladara means, Hala means plow, Dhara means one who is wearing. So it is a name of Balarama. Another name of Balarama is Haladara. So this name of this priest was Haladara of Kalighat. So when he saw the latter's, that is Mathur Babu's firm devotion to Sri Ramakrishna, he thought, because his mind was impure, he thought that this man, that is Sri Ramakrishna, must have charmed the Babu, this prince or this rich Mathur, the son-in-law of the Rani. So it charmed him. Now in Sanskrit and other Tantra terms, it is called as Vashikarana. Charming is Vashikarana. They, by the mantras, by some practices, by some puja, you can control those people and they will do whatever you want. That is called as Vashikarana. So now there are some black magicians. We have heard about it in India. Those black magicians, they will have controlled so many ghosts and hobgoblins and so many other things, lower demigods. So if they put that incantation or that spell or that mantra, those ghosts will possess that people, whomever, whatever they want to get done by them, they will get it done. So that process is called Vashikarana. So they will control them fully. Those people will not be the same for themselves. They will be under the control of their spell of these people who know that. So this person, because his mind was impure, Haladar, he thought that Sri Ramakrishna might have done such things like Vashikarana or something, charmed the Babu. Babu means this great person, Mathur, by means of incantations or some mantras. Ah, he thought, is this rogue of a fellow going to spoil my long attempt at getting Mathur under my control? He wanted to control Mathur and get the favor and benefit. But on the contrary, that Mathur is going behind Ramakrishna. I am trying all my life to control Mathur and get him towards me, but I am not getting. Is this rogue of a fellow going to spoil my long attempt at getting Mathur under my control? He again feigns the mood of a simple child. If he were so simple, let him tell me the incantation for putting a man under spell. If he's so simple, let him tell me what is that mantra is using to put him into incantation or Vashikarana. I had exhausted all my spells on this Babu and nothing is working. I am doing so many mantras, incantation to control him, but nothing is working. And he was almost on the point of succumbing to my influence. I was almost about to get Mathur to my control. But now this interpoler of a fellow, Ramakrishna, has come between us. So he got jealous, this Haladar, the priest. Now, with the increase in his devotion and reverence, Mathur began to have a strong desire for keeping the master's company constantly and for serving him more and more. Therefore, by extending pressing invitations, he often brought Sri Ramakrishna to his house at Jan Bazar in Calcutta, and he enjoyed his company from time to time. In the afternoon, he would take him for a drive to the Eden Garden in Calcutta and other places of interest. He thought, can any and every plate, cup, etc. be considered fit for Baba, father, that is Ramakrishna, to eat and drink from? Thinking so, he had a new set of gold and silver things made in which he offered him food and drink. You should note that. Sri Ramakrishna had not performed the sadhana until then of taking up mud and gold in his hand and telling that mud is gold and gold is mud. Taka mati, mati taka. So he told the mind, that is the discrimination, the vichara he did, I think during the period of the Advaita sadhana or even after that. He took up mud in one hand, then gold in another hand. He again and again told his mind, there is no difference between this mud and gold. This gold is coming from that mud only. So he told his mind, suggested it with so much intensity. After that, he couldn't touch even the metal. He threw it to Ganga after that. So whatever he used to tell the mind would follow. He had so much of control over his mind. Whatever you would tell the mind, it would just follow implicitly. So after that, he couldn't touch any metal. But now, before that, he could. Before doing that sadhana of throwing that gold and mud into the Ganga, he could touch the gold. He was using that ornament and all those things. Now, thinking that Sri Ramakrishna should have to eat and drink, he had a new set of gold and silver things made in which he offered Sri Ramakrishna only food and drink in his house. He had kept that apart, nobody would use it. He dressed him in excellent clothes and said, it is you, Father, who are the owner of all these, his estate and the property. I am nothing but the steward, your servant. For see how you eat and drink from these gold plates and silver cups and glasses, and then leave them behind without even looking at them. And it is I who get them cleaned and kept it in safe places so that you may use them again. Then again, I have the duty of taking care of them and seeing that they are not broken or stolen. So we heard from Sri Ramakrishna of the sorry fate of a pair of Varanasi or Banarasi shawl, which Mathur purchased for 1,000 rupees at that time. Imagine just one shawl, Varanasi, Banarasi shawl, so made with golden threads or something. So he purchased it for 1,000 rupees at that time, and he presented that to Sri Ramakrishna. To whom but the master should be he make a gift of them, thinking thus, Mathur wrapped them around Sri Ramakrishna's holy person and was filled with great joy to see Ramakrishna in that. The pair of shawls was indeed very valuable, for their price even at that time was so high, and now perhaps their like is not available at all. With the shawl on, Sri Ramakrishna was at first going about very happily like a boy. He was looking at it again and again, calling everybody around him, showing it to them, and telling them that Mathur had bought it for him and such a high price. But the next moment, the master was like a boy in a different mood. He thought, what is there in it? It contains nothing but a quantity of animal hair, fur. It is also a modification of the five elements, Panchabhuta, of which all things are made up of. And as regards prevention of cold, why, even cotton quilts or any other material or blankets are equally adequate. Like all other things, it is also not at all helpful for realization of God. So it will bring me pride. It will take my mind away from God. Even ordinary blankets can do the work. So rather when one puts it on, one thinks oneself superior to others. You'll become egotistic and feel superior to other person, and one's mind turns away from God, since it increases pride and egotism. Ah, so many are its defects. Thinking so, the moment he came to think that that is deflecting his mind from God, so that was enough. Anything that takes away his mind from God is he couldn't bear it. So, thinking so, and throwing the shawl, that costly shawl, on the ground, he said, it does not help one in realizing existence, knowledge, bliss, Satchit, Ananda. I spit on it. Saying so, he actually started spitting on it and then rubbed it against the dust on the ground. He was at last ready to set fire to it when someone happened to come there and recover it from his hands. When Mathur Babu came to know of the fate of that shawl, he did not at all feel sorry. On the contrary, Mathur told, "Ah, father did very well. Father did very well." So it is clear from the events recorded above on what a high plane Sri Ramakrishna's mind was always dwelt, in spite of Mathur's best endeavor to keep him in the midst of comforts and enjoyments. So, living in the midst of enjoyment, his mind would not at all get attached to these things. I think we have all studied that shloka of Bhagavad Gita. Atmavashair vidheyatma prasadam adhigacchati. So, even when you are living in the midst of all the exuberance, of all the attachment, sensual objects, so Atmavashyehi Videyatma, a person whose mind is under, or Indriya and mind are under his control, Indriya Nigraha and the Mano Nigraha. So such a person will be in peace and bliss. Atmavashyehi Videyatma Prasadam Adhigacchati. So that is what Lord Krishna is telling in the 64th verse of the second chapter. Atmavashyehi Videyatma Prasadam Adhigacchati. So you can see that same state in Sri Ramakrishna, because his mind is under complete control and his indriyas are under his complete control. In spite of the things, all the richness and everything is not attached. You can live in the midst of all these things, but it would not disturb him. Now, but wheresoever the mind might dwell, it was always filled with ecstasy. It's exactly the statement of Sri Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, Atmavashyehi Videyatma Prasadam Adhigacchati. That mind saw light only, God only, the light that casts no shade, that is not liable to waxing and waning, and before which the brightness of the sun, the brightness of the moon and the stars and the flash of the lightning, let alone fire, are very, very dim, nay, almost dark. So, Kata Upanishad statement is now, and Mundaka Upanishad 2.2.10, Kata Upanishad 2.2.15 has been quoted here in English. What is that? The mind saw light only, the light that casts no shadow, that we tell in Gayatri Mantra, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. Bhargaha means that superior, that highest light which emanates from God. That is called Bhargaha Devasya Dhimahi. Dhiyo yo naha prachodayat. That light. The mind saw that light only, the God, consciousness, the light which emanates from the consciousness. That light that casts no shade, that is not liable to waxing and waning, and before which the brightness of even the sun, moon, and the stars, and the flash of lightning, let alone the fire, are very dim, nay, almost dark. While others saw and lived in masses of darkness, Sri Ramakrishna's mind dwelt in the realm of light. This other realm of darkness, the world filled with malice, hatred, and crookedness, and a permanent abode of lust and anger. Why? It was just a place to which he had come on a flying visit out of compassion. So, although he was living in Jan Bazar in Mathur Babu's house, abounding in all kinds of luxuries and worldly enjoyments, the master was the same master, unattached, devoid of egoism, and besides himself, night and day, with his own divine mood. So now, at every step, Sri Ramakrishna is showing us the ideal of Sthita Prajna Lakshana. which is described by Lord Krishna in the second chapter, end of second chapter, Sthita Prajna Lakshana, a man of steady wisdom, how he behaves, how he sits, how he moves about. Arjuna asks Shri Krishna, Sthita Pragnasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava sthita dihi kim prabhasheta kimasita vrajeta kim. So to which then Krishna goes on explaining what is the condition of a Sthita Prajna. You can now study the life of Sri Ramakrishna and you get everything of what Lord Krishna is told in the life, because some things may be figure of speech. You may learn and hear, oh, that quality is like that, this quality is like this, but until unless somebody had practiced it in their life, and what about the good effect of that in their day-to-day life, we cannot feel inspired. That's why the great Lord has taken the human body and is showing us the ideal, how you can live like this, so that every one of us can get that inspiration. One day, just before dusk, Sri Ramakrishna was lying in a divine semi-conscious state in Mathur's Jan Bazar house, that palace like house of Rani Rasmani. Mathur had brought him there to his house, and Sri Ramakrishna is lying down there in a divine semi-consciousness, that is in Bhava Samadhi. He was not aware of the outer world. He was in that Bhava Samadhi. There was no one near him. The master's ecstasy was coming to an end, and he was gradually having a little consciousness of the outer world, when that jealous Haladar, who wanted to control the Kalighat priest of Mathur, mentioned earlier, happened to come in. He came there because he was the family priest of Mathur. So he came in suddenly. Nobody was there. He and Ramakrishna alone. When he saw Sri Ramakrishna alone in that state, he thought it to be just the opportunity he was looking for. He wanted to know the mantra or the incantation which Ramakrishna had put upon who cast the spell upon Mathur and controlled him. So he wanted to know that from Sri Ramakrishna. He thought Ramakrishna had put some incantation, but Ramakrishna never did anything like that. He just led a pure life, God-centered life, like a small child. He was moving about. But how could this impure minded Haladar know it? So he was so jealous. He wanted to know that. He approached him. So now you can see, with all his power, with all the Divine Mother guarding him, or himself was so powerful, the Lord Gadadhara Vishnu, he could have done anything. He could have destroyed him in a trice. But now you can feel the compassion of the Lord. As I told you earlier, the earlier avatars, as Lord Krishna mentions, is for the paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam. So Lord Krishna himself is telling in Bhagavad Gita, the avatara come again and again, paritranaya sadhunam, to protect the good, vinashaya cha dushkritam, to destroy the dushkritam, the bad-natured people, the dushtas, the duralas, to destroy them. But now in this avatara, it was a different thing. It is not, it paritranaya sadhunam, to protect the good, is always there, but it is not vinashaya cha dushkritam, but it is dushkritam, parivartanaya dushkritam. So in this avatara, there is no destruction. That's why you can see there is no arms. There are no so many khadga or gadha or anything like that to kill Sudarshana Chakra. Nowhere the Lord is displaying is so simple. So no destruction. It is only transformation. The dushtas and other people are being transformed. So when he saw the master alone in that state, what is happening? He approached him, looked around, and said again and again, while pushing his holy person about, he is ill-treating Sri Ramakrishna, who is in a divine semi-consciousness state in Samadhi. He cannot have any body consciousness at all at that time in that Bhava Samadhi. He caught hold of Sri Ramakrishna and roughly is moving about, caught hold of his collar and pushing about Ramakrishna's holy person. Oh man, Tell me how you made that Babu, that Mathur, subservient to you. Why do you keep mum, feigning ignorance, playing drama in front of me? Tell me. He's shaking Sri Ramakrishna violently, wildly. How did you captivate Mathur? Speak out. Although he repeated the questions again and again, the master did not or could not say anything, for he had not then the power to speak at all. He was in that high state of samadhi. Haldar then became very angry. So his anger increased because of the jealousy, because he's not telling anything. His anger increased. What did he do? He kicked Sri Ramakrishna's person violently. So until now, he was pushing and pulling Sri Ramakrishna. Now with his leg, he started kicking the person of Sri Ramakrishna violently, saying, "Damn you rascal, you want to hide your secret from me?" And then finally he went away. Devoid of egoism, devoid of egotism. Now Ramakrishna had no egotism in him at all. He had removed that completely. He could see only God in everybody. He could see Narayana or himself, the Lord, the Atman, Parabrahman in every living being. So how can he punish anybody for that sake? How can he get angry? We should also now note the incident in the life of Swami Vivekananda when he was delivering a lecture in America. There was one British officer sitting there who was the British officer in India. He hated India and he hated Indians. So when he was in the midst of the lecture, he stood up and started abusing and scolding Swami Vivekananda, all the Indians and everything. But Vivekananda stood there smiling without any, in spite of him disturbing the lecture, he was just smiling at him and he never remarked or told anything, he protested or anything, just smiling at him. So he got exhausted after much scolding and left that place in a huff. So all the other devotees or the followers of Vivekananda, the Western people there, they told Swamiji, Swamiji, you could have just told him to leave or scolded him or even protested, because he was so indecent, he was so courteousless. So you could have just protested. Then Swami Vivekananda told, I was in such a high state, I couldn't understand who was scolding whom and who should scold back whom. Because I could see only the same Atman in him too. The same Atman who is within me, the Parabrahma Swarupa, the God within me, I was seeing that in him too. So I couldn't understand who was scolding whom and whom should I scold back. So now, if that is the case temporarily felt by Swami Vivekananda, Ramakrishna is feeling that high mood all the time, is in a high state. How can he punish back, or just by his will he could destroy that person? But how can he do that? Because he will be destroying the same Atman which is within him, the person Jivatman. So though he kicked him violently, scolded him, and went away devoid of egotism, Sri Ramakrishna made no mention of the incident, since he knew that if Mathur Babu came to know, was sure to be furiously angry and inflict very severe punishment to that priest should he come to know of it. A short time after, the priest incurred Mathur's anger by committing some other offense and he was dismissed. Afterwards, one day, in the course of conversation, Sri Ramakrishna happened to mention this incident. Hearing of it, Mathur was in anger and anguish. Had I known it before, Father, that fellow would indeed would have lost his head. Then Ramakrishna told him, that is why I didn't tell you. So you can just imagine the compassion, even in spite of him ill-treating him to such an extent. The Lord now in this avatara is so full of compassion, so full of kindness, just like the mother kicked by the baby, the mother doesn't get angry. So the child will always kick the mother in the womb. It will cause so much of pain. And after coming out, when the mother is carrying the baby, so many times it will pull the hair of the mother, bite the mother, then kick the mother with its leg. Will the mother get angry? Never. Likewise, Sri Ramakrishna had so much of compassion to the living beings. In spite of all this, he would not even think of punishing that person. So such was the intensity of compassion with which to transform the dustas. Dushta prajasu parivartanaya. Transformation, it is not destruction, which the avatara, present avatara has come. Mathur and his wife did experience in their heart of hearts the infinite grace emanating from Sri Ramakrishna as the divine teacher, the Parama Guru. And they had, as a consequence, surrendered themselves to him as to the very deity himself. A convincing proof of this attitude of theirs was the fact that they never concealed anything about themselves from Sri Ramakrishna. Both of them knew and said, Father is not a man, but is God himself. Of what avail is it to conceal anything from him? He knows everything, the inmost secret of anybody's heart. There were not They were not just empty words. They acted up to them. How many were the occasions on which they did everything, eating, drinking, walking, etc., together with Father, that is Sri Ramakrishna? What did it matter if Father freely visited the inner apartment of their house? What mattered it again if he did not do so? For on many occasions, they got proof of the fact that he knew every kind of thought passing through the minds of all. And Father might very well be considered as good as a wall or some other insentient thing as regard the chief evil, the feeling of mental impurity arising from the free mixing of men and women. Was it not a fact that none of the ladies in the inner apartment had felt that kind of shyness and hesitation as they did in the presence of other men? Did they not feel that he was but one of them, or a boy of 5 years old? We were surprised to hear many stories from Sri Ramakrishna's own lips about the wonderful loving relationship that existed between Mathu's family, including the members of inner apartment and master, who had converted himself thoroughly in thought and feeling into a female companion of Divine Mother by constant and prolonged meditation on his own identity with such a character. Sometimes he said he would come out dressed as a woman in the company of the ladies of the family with a chamara in his hand. Chamara is the fan used to fan the gods and goddesses. With a chamara in hand to the place in the outer apartment where Mother Durga was being worshipped, because he was in that at the time in the mood of the divine attendant of Mother Durga. He was in that bhava. So as Hanuman, when he was doing the sadhana of the Dasya bhava, so he had dressed himself like Hanuman. He would be sitting on the tree. He would eat everything just like the Vanaras, and he would be always taking the name of Lord Ramachandra. So Rama, Rama, he used to be repeating. So whatever he used to do, any sadhana, he would not just do it half. He would completely do it. So in the Dasya Bhava, he used to do like just Hanuman, just behave completely like Hanuman. And when he's performing this Dasi Bhava, just like the Dasi of the Divine Mother, he used to become a woman, identify himself like a woman, wear the dress apparel like a woman. And now he used to serve Divine Mother Durga just like her servant, Dasi Bhava. So now He used to take that chamara in his hand, come to the place in the outer apartment where Mother Durga was being worshipped, and would fan her holy image. Sometimes again, when the husband of a young lady of the family arrived, he would adorn her with beautiful dress and ornaments, just as on account of his mood of the spiritual teacher, these ladies were firmly convinced of Sri Ramakrishna's divine nature and revered him as such. Even so, were they thoroughly acquainted with his immaculate, selfless love for them, and poured out their hearts' love to him and acted and behaved with him with a freedom hardly imaginable. How strange it is to contemplate. Here, on the one hand, we find Sri Ramakrishna like a female friend in the midst of the ladies of Mathu's inner apartment, dealing with them with a love and intimacy devoid of any sexual tinge in it. Next, on the other, we find the same strange Sri Ramakrishna in the company of learned scholars and men in general, behaving towards them with incomparable intelligence and divine light. Who could this mysterious man be with such a multiform personality and a harmony of conflicting moods, bhavas? In those days, it was a practice at the Dakshineshwar temple to bring the two images of Radha and Govinda from the adjacent bedroom. Now, in the temples in India, they treat the gods and goddesses which they are worshipping as if they are living people. Suppose it is Radha Krishna temple, because in Dakshineshwar, behind Divine Mother Kali's temple, there is the Radha Krishna temple. They worship there Radha Krishna. In the Kali temple complex itself, you have this Radha Krishna temple. And there are the 12 Shiva temples. Then there is the big Kali temple. So many other deities are worshipped there. Now, how do they treat the Ishtadevata Krishna? As if he is living in Dwaraka and Radha or Rukmini by the side. So they will treat as if the person, the king, Lord Krishna in the form of an emperor or a king is living there. So how the whole day we treat that king? They treat Lord Krishna with every service from morning to the night. So now here in this Radha Govinda temple, there were these two images. So in the night, they used to bring the image of Lord Krishna and Radha. There will be a Shayana Graha bedroom. So they will place Lord Krishna's image and Govind, that is Radha's image, there on the bed, and they would cover the bed sheet if it is cold, or they would put a thin cloth and fan the Lord, just like a king is treated. So now in this Radha Govinda temple, from the adjacent bedroom, and seat them on the throne in the main room of the temple in the morning, and to take them back to the bedroom for rest when the midday worship, food offering, etc. were over. They were again brought to the throne from there, and after 4 in the afternoon, and were taken back in the night after Arati at dusk and offering of food. One day, the marble floor of the temple had become slippery because of water spilt on it. And as the priest was carrying the image of Govinda to the bedroom, Shainagraha, he fell down, he slipped the water there on the marble floor, and the leg of the image of Govinda was broken. There arose a great stir. The priest himself got hurt and was also trembling with fear because the image, the leg of Govinda, image of Govinda is broken. The news reached the proprietors. They were faced with an insoluble difficulty. The worship could not be performed with a broken image. What was the way out now? Rani Rasamani and Mathur Babu invited all the famous Pandits, scholars, were expert in Agama, Nigama, Shastra, everything, Purana, and asked for a solution. Rani Rasamani and Mathur Babu invited all the famous scholars of the city for a meeting to ascertain the procedure to be adopted now in this crisis. The opinion of those scholars were unable to be present owing to some business or others who were far off were also collected through the post or something like that. Courier. The occasion was very sensational. Courier means not the present day courier, but somebody would go there and bring it on horseback or something. So the occasion now was very sensational. It was also very expensive, as all the pandits or the scholars invited had to be given rich farewell presents according to their status, according to their degree and master degree or PhDs, not the PhDs. It is they will get so many after they study Vedanta. They're called as Panditas. If they study still higher things, they will be rewarded with such and such a name, Tarka Alankara, that these Jyotisha Alankara, Pandita, so many things, they will be given that status award. So according to their status, they had to be given the gift, Dana, and the gift, the Dakshina. So it was very costly because all that great scholars had come. So invited to be given rich farewell presents according to their status. The Pandits opened their books, applied snuff to their nostrils. Naturally, people will have different, habits. So just like people have smoking and other things, drinking coffee, drinking tea. So in olden days, there was this habit of putting this tobacco powder in the form of wet powder or the dry powder into the nose. That's called snuff, nashya. So some Pandits were with this habit. So they will open the book, put some snuff into the nose, and then start giving their opinion they start reading from the scriptures. The Pandits, the scholars opened their books, applied snuff to their nostrils as if they were going to stimulate the source of their intelligence, and delivered their dictum. Let the broken image be immersed in the water of Ganga and a new one installed in its stead. Make a new image. The old image which is broken, you have to drown it or immerse it in Ganga, and the new one is to be installed in that place. And a sculptor was accordingly given orders to make a new image. At the close of the meeting, Mathur Babu said to Rani Rasmani, but Sri Ramakrishna, that is Father Baba, has not been consulted on the matter. What Sri Ramakrishna thinks, Baba thinks, must be ascertained. Saying so, he asked Father for his opinion. Now, Sri Ramakrishna went into a divine semi-conscious state. Then he replied in that higher samadhi, bhava samadhi. If, said Sri Ramakrishna, in an ecstatic mood, any one of the son-in-laws of Rani Rasamani had broken his leg owing to a fall or an accident, would Rani Rasamani have forsaken that son-in-law, immersed him in the Ganga, or thrown him away and bought another son-in-law in his place, in his stead? Or would proper arrangements would be made for the treatment of the son-in-law? What would the Rani do? Will she replace the son-in-law, bring in another new healthy son-in-law, push away or throw away or immerse that old son-in-law who has broken his leg or something to the Ganga? Let that procedure be followed here also. You are treating that image of Krishna as a living person. Now you want to immerse it. Let the broken part of the leg of the image be joined and the worship continued. Why should the image be thrown away? Always surprised to hear the prescription. Nobody had sufficient brains for this very plain reasoning. All great Pandit scholars, they opened their books and gave so many different opinions, but nobody thought in this manner. A simple solution. Nobody had sufficient brains for this very plain reasoning. If it is to be admitted that the image is living on account of the divine manifestation of Govinda, Krishna, that manifestation must surely depend upon the deep love and devotion in the heart of the devotee. and his grace or compassion for him. So why is that manifestation not possible in a broken image as well? If there were love, reverence, and devotion in the heart, and the merit or demerit of the broken image can by no means touch the manifestation. Moreover, can the reverence for the image in which the worship of the divine Lord has been performed and to which one's heartfelt love has been offered so long vanish from the heart so easily of a true devotee simultaneously with the breaking of a particular limb of that image? The Vaishnava teachers again teach that devotees should serve the divine Lord in the same way in which they themselves like to be served. I'll repeat it again. The Vaishnava teachers again, that is Vaishnava means the followers of Vishnu is called Vaishnava. The Vaishnava teachers again teach the devotees, the bhaktas, what the bhaktas, the devotees should serve the divine Lord, the image of the divine Lord in the same way in which one treat himself, which they themselves like to be served. They think that the divine Lord loves what oneself likes in any particular condition and inculcate upon us the kind of service. The prescription to give up the image is not proper from that standpoint too. Therefore, the ban on worshipping the deity in a broken image, which is found in the Smritis, is surely meant for the novice, the beginner in the spiritual life, who is devoid of love for God. In the devotion, there are two kinds of devotion. The first one for the novice who is beginner is Vaidhi Bhakti. Vaidhi Bhakti means who follows all the Vidhi Vidhana. If we follow rules and regulation, Vidhi Vidhana, according to the scriptures, it is told like this book, so you literally follow that. You don't have devotion, it is not coming out of devotion. It is a mechanical thing. So that is called Vaidhi Bhakti. When you are a novice, you follow that. But when you go on performing that devotion, that it increases your devotion to such an extent, then it is called Ragatmika Bhakti. Ragatmika Bhakti is the devotion with lot of attachment to God. Just like when we are attached to the human beings, how do we behave towards them? So when the same or even more attachment comes towards the God, then that is called Ragatmika Bhakti. So first is Vaidhi Bhakti. It is for the novices. So they have to follow all the Vidhi, Vidhana, rules, regulations, Niyama, Shuddhi, Madi, Mailige, all those things what we tell. So all those things are to be followed. All the purity, so many things they follow. So you have to touch one times, you have to wash, take bath so many times. You should touch your hand, everything. All those things are Vidhi Vidhana Bhakti. So, but when you go deeper and deeper, you have that Ragatmika Bhakti with love and devotion, then the whole thing changes. Therefore, the ban on worshipping the deity in a broken image, which is found in the Smritis, a lower scripture than the Shruti. So the highest is the Shruti, the Vedas. Then little below that is the Smritis. Then is the Puranas. So all those things, there will be the hierarchy. The highest is Shruti, that is the Vedas. Then is Smriti. So now the Smritis tell everything. Now there is the Manusmriti, Yagnavalkya Smriti. So all these things are mentioned in the Smritis. And the fact is, just like they are like constitution of the country. Like the constitution will be changed according to the change in the society. Likewise, the Smritis will go on changing. It can be changed according to the difference in society, because it changes over 100 years, 1,000 years, the society changes. So the Smritis also will change. Therefore, the ban on worshipping the deity in a broken image, which is found in the Smritis, is surely meant for the novice. Novice means the beginner in spiritual life, who is still yet devoid of love for God. It is only a mechanical thing. The love is at a very lower state. So it has not expressed itself in the form of the preeti, love. It is just basic devotion. We just follow rules and regulations. So who is devoid of love for God and has just begun to tread the path of devotion, is in the beginning or kindergarten of bhakti. Some of the proud scholars, however, differed from Sri Ramakrishna's decision. Some others did not clearly express their views, lest their farewell gifts, dakshina, would suffer reduction if they give any open statement. And some others again who had acquired a little of true knowledge and devotion through learning very highly praised the solution offered by Sri Ramakrishna when they came to know of it. The master with his own hands. Now you should know that from the beginning, from the childhood, Sri Ramakrishna was expert, a master in making images. He used to make beautiful images of Lord Shiva, Divine Mother, Lord Krishna, or any deity in clay, and used to sculpt in different other things. So he used to make it so beautiful in the clay and worship it as a child in Kamarpukur. And even in Dakshineshwar, when he used to come, he had made a beautiful image of Shiva using the clay of Ganga, and the expression on the face was so beautiful. Mathur had it, and he had taken it to the home. So he was expert sculptor, master in sculpting. So now it was given to Sri Ramakrishna to mend that Krishna's image. So what did Sri Ramakrishna do? The master, with his own hands, joined the broken leg of the image afterwards. He took it inside his room, locked the door. God alone knows what gum or special thing he applied. It got joined in such a beautiful way. Even now that image is kept there in the Radhakanta temple. You can go and weave it. Nobody can even know that leg was broken. Such a fine way. Ramakrishna had so much of perfection in whatever he did. So he joined that leg. What gum he put, how did he join, God alone knows. So the master with his own hands joined the broken leg of the image afterwards, and the worship of it went as before. Even now, if you go to Dakshineshwar, you can see that image. When the sculptor made a new image and bought it, it was merely placed on one side of the temple of Govinda, but was never duly installed. After the passing away of the Rani and Mathur Babu, their descendants, those people who did not know all these things, made preparation from time to time for the installation of that new image, but were compelled to put it off on account of some worldly mishaps or others on each occasion. The new image of Govinda is therefore preserved in that condition even now. So if you go to Dakshineshwar, you can see that. Now we are entering to the next chapter, grace bestowed on Mathur in the mood of the spiritual teacher. So in that Guru Bhava, how Sri Ramakrishna bestowed his grace. So many people want to know what is grace, how the Lord bestows grace, how the Guru bestows grace on the disciples or the followers or the devotees. So now in the next chapter, we can see, so Shardanandaji Maharaj, the direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna himself, who lived with him, learned from him, himself is writing this book, The Great Master. Now he has named this also wonderfully well. Grace bestowed on Mathur in the mood of the spiritual teacher. Just like Arjuna was given that Bhagavad Gita, it was not for Arjuna. Arjuna is only used as a calf. So in the meditation of Bhagavad Gita, we have a shloka verse, Partho Vatsaha Sudhihi Bhokta Dugdham Hitamrutam Mahat. So Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogda Gopala Nandanaha. All the Upanishads, all the Vedas are the cow, milk yielding cow. And Dogda, the Gopala, the person who is milking that Upanishad, the essence of Upanishad and the Vedas, is none other than Gopala, Lord Krishna. Partho Vatsaha, who is Partha then? Is the calf. How do the milkman use the calf? They take the calf to the mother and allow it to suckle the udder there. So when the baby starts suckling the milk, immediately the mother starts releasing the milk to the udder. So after that, the baby is only treated there to release the milk. After that, the milkman will take away the calf and he would milk the cow and he would distribute it amongst the people. So here, that person who has written this meditation, Partho Vatsaha, he's telling Partha or Arjuna has been made like the calf, just to go and start for the Upanishads to release the milk. So who is the milkman? Lord Krishna. He is giving us Bhagavad Gita. So what is the Bhagavad Gita? Bhagavad Gita is the essence of Upanishads and Vedas, and that is the milk drawn from the udder of that cow of Vedas or Upanishad. So likewise, here too, the milkman, the Lord himself is the Vedas, Upanishad here, Ramakrishna. And through Mathur, we are the person who is enjoying that milk. The Bhagavad Gita is enjoyed by the people who read it. The calf Partha gets only a little, like the calf gets milk only a little. But we are the one who consume that milk and enjoy and get nourishment. Likewise, here too, Mathur is only just like a calf. But through that, Ramakrishna is showing how much compassion he has to all the living beings. And thinking on that, meditating on that, we shall also get that compassion. We will go to that reading in the next class, that is the next Sunday and Monday. We are again taking up this great master study. For now, because we have completed our time, we shall devote some time for question and answer if you have any. If you have any question and answers, questions or doubts.
Maharaj, I have a question.
Yes,
if
please.
Ramakrishna was an avatara, so his separation from God, why would it cause bodily difficulties like burning sensation?
Now, if you study the mystics of Catholic Christians, they were all great lovers of Jesus Christ. So Catholic Christians, Saint Francis of Assisi, so many great Catholic saints were there. So one was that Saint Francis of Assisi. So now he used to meditate on Lord Jesus Christ so intensely, he became one with the Lord so much that he used to feel the pain of Jesus Christ on during the crucifixion. So he is not crucified. Saint Francis is just like an ordinary man like us, but he's so intensely feeling for Jesus Christ that he started bleeding marks wherever Jesus Christ was hit with that nails, wherever he was crucified, wherever he was nailed. So here he is not crucified, he is not nailed here, Saint Francis of Assisi. He was feeling the pain and that nailing, and it started bleeding at those places. So he wanted to share the pain of Lord Jesus Christ. So like the different devotees have different bhava, their expression. Some people want to that Shuddha Bhakti, that why should the Lord only do all the biddings and do all the difficulties. So I'm such my devotion to the Lord is so much, I will share. So Lord should not feel the pain, I shall feel that pain. So like that they become so one with the Lord. Like that here it is different bhava, the feeling for God. It varies. There are infinite moods, infinite bhava. It's not just ordinary thing. So as you feel that you should realize God, become one with God. Suppose a mother is separated from the baby. Just imagine how the mother will frantically feel for the baby and searching. She will soon, she will be unconscious. She will fall on the ground and cry. Can you feel the pang of separation of the mother for the just born baby if it is lost, or the baby which is helpless is lost? So how will that mother feel the pain for the separation? So what about when you feel the pain of that highest God, when you have not attained God, when you have not become one with God? Just imagine how will be the feeling that I want to become one with God, that pain of separation, because it was very intense. Because we ordinary people, we can't feel for God so intensely. If you try, you too can get it. That is called Mahabhava. Mother Radha had that feeling, the gopis had that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also had that. So great people can have it. So we can express that to some extent, the intensity of the devotion to Lord. So it is called divine discontentment. So now Ramakrishna has taken the body as an avatara to show us the path. Whatever he does, he has to do intensely, the highest, not ordinarily, because he is to become an ideal. Just like yad yad acharati shreshtaha tat tat evetaro janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokastadanu vartate. Whatever the people at the higher position or the elderly do, the others, the followers, will do at least to some extent. So if Ramakrishna does it 100%, we may do some 1% or 0.1%. So always the avatars have to keep the highest ideal in front of us, so that we may take up a little and follow, inculcate or imitate them. So Ramakrishna is showing the divine discontentment at the highest level, so that we, the followers who read the life, may get little a flash of it at least. Otherwise, we will just forget it. So we will start doing that, imitating that, putting that into our life, so that Ramakrishna done so much, let us do a little at least. So avatars come down. Ramachandra came down as an avatara and went to the forest and did all the great things. Why should he go to the forest? Why should he cry for his wife? So he is an ideal husband. He is an ideal king. He is an ideal son. So all that ideals he had to show. That's why he's called Maryada Purushottama, a best perfected man he showed as. So he would not show himself as a great avatara or a god. He would show as a perfect man, so that he can be the ideal for us to follow. Likewise here to Ramakrishna in this age, he's showing all these ideals so that we can follow to some extent at least. Yeah. Any other questions? Any other doubts?
Pranam Swamiji, Colin Shetty Swamiji.
Oh, Colin Shetty ji. Namaste. How is your health?
My health is fine with all your prayers, Swamiji. But most importantly, the question of Haladari, Swamiji.
Yeah.
There's a Haladari in all of us, I suppose.
Yeah.
And somehow we are also guilty of abusing the Lord.
Definitely.
In various ways.
Yeah, you are correct. You are correct. See, you have taken it in the right way. Wonderful way. See, though born in South Africa, you don't have the all the exposure like Indians. Colin Shetty, I can see that you have really progressed in spiritual life. You are feeling the correct attitude. Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's all for your prayer.
Yeah, yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. Any other question? Any other doubts? Or shall we?
Maharaj, I do have a question. I think Mr. Colin Shetty has taken it in the right spirit, but maybe I'm missing something here. Because taking that Haladari's example, there should be some punishment for insulting such a high, spirit, isn't it?
we always see the negative side.
Mm.
We always take the negative side because the God, we have to take this from the angle of Sri Ramakrishna, who is the Avatar Purusha, Lord Vishnu himself. All are his children. That's why I gave you the example of the mother. The mother kicks the baby kicks the mother with the legs. Will the mother get angry? Will the mother punish? So many times it gives so much of pain, even when it is in the womb, coming out of the womb. It will be giving so much pain. Will the mother, even in the dream, expect any punishment for the baby because it is troubled? I think not even in the dreams, mother will ask for the punishment to the baby. What if, with the case of the highest mother, that is God, how can he ask for punishment for us who are his children? We may commit mistake, we may do that. We are all doing that. Every step we are doing that because it is the Lord who is present in us. I gave the example of one devotee who asked me that her mother-in-law had troubled her so many times, or not so many times, one time. Then again she gets nightmare. She always thinks of it again and again. Then I asked her, how many times did your mother-in-law punish or scold you? Only once. How many times have you punished yourself by thinking of it again and again instead of thinking the positive things? 1,000 times. Who is the culprit? Who is the wrongdoer? We are the wrongdoers. We are doing that, thinking that again and again, punishing ourselves again and again. So who is punished within us with all these thoughts? The Lord who is within us. So you are daily abusing the Lord who is within your heart. Every second you are abusing the Lord who is within your heart by our wrong behavior and negative thoughts. Then we are telling we are Haladar didn't get punished. So this is a lesson for us that we do not understand the mistakes which we are committing. In different way we are hurting the Lord, abusing the Lord, not using the proper things given by the Lord for higher self. Ramakrishna has come down, or the avatar of the Lord has come down, taking so much of pain. What are we doing to realize God and go up in spite of his so much of pain? Are we putting any effort? Then are we not also punishing the Lord without doing that, paining the Lord? So we forget about our mistakes. We are always looking at the mistakes of others. That's why Jesus Christ told when they wanted to stone a lady, a characterless lady was to be stoned. So there was a heap of stone. People were there ready to stone her because of a mistake. Then Jesus Christ was there. He asked, any person who has not done any sin, he can show the first throw the first stone. So everybody is a sinner. Everybody has committed so many wrongs. So before judging others, we have to first judge ourselves. So that's very, very important here. Okay, it's already too much of time. Then we will close the session today with the prayer. Om Priyatam Pundarikakshaha Sarvayagneshwaro Harihi Tasmin Tushte Jagat Tushtam Prenite Prenitam Jagat Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.